My daughter said, "Let's take a break this Christmas, just the adults, no kids." I agreed. Didn't fight. Didn't ask why. I just nodded like I always do. Like a man who's used to being the afterthought in his own family. Her name is Meredith. 42. Corporate sharp. She's got this stainless steel smile that makes you feel like everything's fine, until you realize you're no longer invited. My name is Walter Graves. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever spent your whole life giving to others, only to realize they were never giving anything back? Christmas was always my favorite, not because of the tree or the songs, but because for one day I got to see my grandkids run through the house with tinsel in their hair and sugar on their cheeks. Last year, I made them wooden trains by hand. Took me 3 weeks. Meredith smiled, said they were rustic. Her husband never looked up from his phone. But this year, we just want something simple, Dad. No kids. Just adults. Maybe next year, okay? I told her, "Sure, sweetheart." She said, "Thanks for understanding." I didn't. Not really. But I said it anyway. I sat alone that morning, hot cider in my hand, a wrapped gift by the door, something special I'd saved for months to afford. A hand-stitched memory quilt of all our past Christmases. $8,300. I'd planned it since July. Then I saw the photos. Her house. Lights everywhere. Laughter. Wine. A dining table, so long you'd think a senator was hosting. And there they were, her co-workers, friends, friends of friends, even her friends' boyfriends' nephews. Kids. Everywhere. I stared at the photo for a long while. Not angry. Just hollow. Then I stood up, walked to the tree, unwrapped the gift I had meant for her, and took one clean photo. Sent it with a message. Maybe you don't need this anymore. 40 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I didn't move. Not at first. But when I opened it, Meredith stood there. No words. Just her eyes, red, wet, and full of something she hadn't shown me in years. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, coat unbuttoned, breathing shaky, eyes darting toward the gift box still resting on my hallway table. Unopened, untouched. I leaned against the doorframe. "What brings you here?" I asked. My voice didn't crack. I made sure of that. She swallowed. "Dad, I didn't mean to." "You said adults only," I said softly. "I'm guessing nephews count now." She flinched. Just slightly. Then looked down at her, hands like the answer might be hiding in her palms. I stepped aside. "You came this far. Might as well sit." We didn't talk for a full 2 minutes. Just silence. The kind that wraps around your ribs and presses in slow. She finally spoke. It wasn't supposed to be like that. One person showed up, then another, and suddenly I didn't matter. I finished for her. My name is Walter Graves. And I've learned something about silence. It's not the absence of sound. It's the presence of truth no one wants to hear. Have you ever raised someone, fed them, clothed them, sat by their bedside when they were sick, only to become an obligation in their planner? She tried again. "Dad, I made a mistake." "No," I interrupted gently. "You made a choice." Her eyes welled again. I didn't offer a tissue. "I've never been good at boundaries," she said. "I thought it would hurt less if we kept it light this year." "Whose hurt were you trying to avoid?" I asked. "Yours or mine?" That did it. She broke. "I was ashamed, okay," she whispered. "Ashamed that I've done so little for you. That I haven't made space for you. It's easier to ignore what you feel guilty about." I didn't nod. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. I just stood, looking at the woman who once held my hand crossing streets, now afraid to meet my eyes in her father's living room. "You don't get to erase me and then cry when I hand you the mirror," I said. She stared at me, not like a daughter. Like a stranger realizing the man she hurt still knows how to stand tall. Then she asked quietly, "Can I open the gift?" I said, "No, not yet." And I walked away. She didn't follow me. I heard her shift on the couch, the sound of fabric and hesitation, but she stayed where she was. Good. Let her sit with it. I moved into the kitchen, slow and steady. Poured myself a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Didn't warm it. I needed the bitterness to match the air between us. My name is Walter Graves. And if you've ever spent your life giving love, you know exactly when it stops being received. I looked around my house, small, quiet, lined with memories. Her handprint still stamped on the wall from second grade. The chipped mug she gave me in college that said "World's okayest, Dad," meant as a joke. It wasn't funny now. I sat at the kitchen table, and after a few minutes, she spoke from the living room. "Do you remember that one Christmas, the year Mom left? When you cooked everything and pretended it was normal?" I didn't answer. Jake threw up because he ate too much fudge. I cried when I didn't get that dollhouse. And you stayed up all night building one out of wood scraps and glue. She paused. I was 7, and you didn't sleep for 2 days. I've never forgotten that. I stared into the steam rising from my coffee, as if it held the man I used to be. "You were our foundation," she said. "And I just pushed you to the edge of the family photo." Silence again. I didn't move. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe the guilt was real, not just reaction. But sometimes apologies arrive only when consequences do. "You didn't push me to the edge," I finally said. "You cropped me out entirely." She came into the kitchen, slowly. No shoes. She looked smaller than she used to, not in size, but in certainty. "I canceled the New Year's trip," she said. "The one with the spa and wine tasting. I want to stay. I want to fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, she wasn't performing. She was just a daughter, broken, trying, late. "You can't fix what you won't face," I said. "But if you're ready to stop hiding behind parties and planners, maybe we can start again." She nodded quietly. But then I added, "Starting again doesn't mean starting where we left off." And I stood up. She stood there, barefoot on my kitchen tiles, nodding like a child who knew she didn't have the right answers, just the will to stay in the room. I walked past her, slow, steady. Not angry, just tired. In the hallway, that box still sat by the tree, gold wrapping paper, dark green bough. The gift she hadn't earned. Not yet. She followed me this time, stopping a few feet behind. "I didn't come for the gift," she said. "I know," I replied. "But you came because of it." My name is Walter Graves. And if you live long enough, you realize, not every knock on the door is about love. Sometimes it's about guilt, or shame, or fear of what your silence says about them. She sat down across from me again. This time, no excuses. No tidy explanations. "I wasn't just taking a break from the kids," she said. "I was taking a break from expectations. From the weight of pretending I'm someone I'm not." "And who are you?" I asked. She hesitated. "Someone who forgot how to be a daughter." That hit harder than I expected. I looked at her. The lines around her eyes weren't from age, they were from strain. A life spent trying to prove something to everyone but the man who gave her everything without asking for much. "I wasn't looking for perfect," I said. "Just present." She lowered her gaze. "I didn't know how far I'd drifted until I saw your message." That one sentence, it felt like a mirror cracking. I nodded slowly. Sometimes we don't notice what we've broken until we hear the silence echoing back. She reached forward, hands trembling slightly, and placed her phone on the table. I deleted the photos. The ones from the party. "I don't need you to delete them," I said. "I need you to remember what they meant." There was a long pause. Then I stood, walked to the fireplace, and picked up the old wooden train I had made for her son last year, the one that was never unwrapped. I handed it to her. She held it like a fragile thing, both toy and testimony. "I can't undo what I did," she whispered. "No," I said, "but you can stay long enough to build something new." And this time, she didn't leave. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Real ones, not boxed, not burnt, not rushed. The kind my late wife used to make when the house was still whole. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. But the quiet clinking of dishes, the soft hum of a familiar song from the kitchen, it was all real. I stepped out still in my robe, and found Meredith standing at the stove, apron too big, eyes focused, flipping pancakes like her hands remembered something her heart had forgotten. She looked up. "Morning." I just nodded, sat down, let the smell fill the cracks. My name is Walter Graves. And sometimes redemption doesn't shout. It cooks quietly on a cold morning and waits to see if you'll sit long enough to taste it. She poured coffee before I could ask. The same mug. World's okayest dad. I held it in both hands like it meant something again. I don't know how to make this right, she said. You're not supposed to, I replied. You're supposed to mean it. She placed a plate in front of me. I called Jake, she said. Told him he's spending next weekend with you. No excuses. I raised an eyebrow. Does he know? She smiled softly. He said about time. I let that sit for a moment. Then she pulled something from her coat pocket, folded carefully, slightly creased. My message. The photo of the gift. I printed it out, she said, because I don't want to forget how this felt. That did something to me. We didn't speak much after that. Just ate. Saturday. Watched the wind move through the bare trees outside the window, like old thoughts leaving the house. Before she left that afternoon, she stood at the door and looked at the gift box again. May I? She asked. I nodded. She opened it slowly, unwrapping not just ribbon and paper, but months of distance and silence. Inside the quilt, hand-stitched, memory-laced, and quiet. She unfolded it like it was made of glass. She didn't cry this time. She just whispered, I remember every square. Then she hugged me, not out of guilt, but grief for time lost. And I let her. The house felt different after she left. Not louder, not brighter, just warmer. Like something had been unlocked, not with a key, but with a presence. A long overdue presence. That night, I sat by the fire with the quilt draped over my lap. Not because I was cold, but because I needed to feel something that was finally finished. Not perfect, just finished. My name is Walter Graves. And sometimes the quietest repair comes not with words, but with time spent in the same room, without needing to fix a single thing. 3 days passed. Then, on the 4th morning, I heard knocking again. This time, it wasn't Meredith. It was Jake, my grandson, 14. Hoodie half-zipped, headphones hanging from his neck, eyes somewhere between tired and hopeful. Mom said I could spend the weekend, he mumbled. I smiled. She told me, you said, about time. He looked embarrassed. I didn't mean for her to repeat that. I stepped aside. Still proud of you for saying it. He walked in, looked around like the place was familiar and foreign all at once. You redecorate? He asked. Nope, I said. Time just made things quieter. He grinned. Fair. We spent the day doing simple things, chopping wood, feeding the birds, pulling out old board games. I didn't give him lectures. I didn't ask him about grades or goals. I just listened. And that night, he pulled out the train. The one you made last year, he said. I found it in a box in Mom's attic. Still in the wrapping paper. I didn't flinch. Figures. He turned it over in his hands, studied the little wheels. Why'd you make this? Because I thought maybe you'd need a reminder that someone still builds things just for you. He looked up. Can I keep it here? That surprised me. Why? He shrugged. Because this place feels like it remembers who I am. Mom's house doesn't. I nodded quietly. Then it stays here. So do you. Whenever you want. He smiled. And that night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep to the sound of someone else breathing in the next room. Not because they had to be there. Because they chose to. The next morning, Jake was already outside. Splitting wood with too much muscle and not enough rhythm. But he was trying. Every now and then he'd glance toward the window to see if I was watching. I was. Proudly. Quietly. I opened the door and handed him a glass of orange juice. No pancakes, he joked. I smirked. Only when your mother's trying to apologize. He laughed, really laughed. The kind I hadn't heard since he was small, before screens and school and silence took over. My name is Walter Graves. And I've come to believe that second chances aren't given, they're noticed, when someone shows up again without being asked. We spent the morning fixing the garden fence. He asked questions I didn't expect. Did you ever want to leave? I looked at him. You mean this house? No, this family. That hit deep. I took a breath. There were moments when your mother started pulling away, when holidays became invitations instead of traditions. Yeah, it hurt. Jake nodded slowly. I think she thought you'd always be here." "She wasn't wrong," I said. "But even stone breaks if it's ignored long enough." He said nothing, just kept hammering. Later that afternoon, Meredith returned. No announcement, just a knock and a quiet entrance. She carried a small box. "Something for you." I raised a brow. She opened it. Inside was a printed photo, framed. It was me, Jake, and the old wooden train. She must have taken it from the night before. Below it, a note in her handwriting. "No more cropping out." I stared at it for a long time. "May I hang it here?" she asked, motioning toward the hallway wall, the one filled with past Christmases, birthdays, and fading smiles. I nodded. She stepped up, gently placed it between two older photos. One from when she was 10. One from the last Christmas her mother was alive. It fit perfectly. Then she looked at me and said, "We're coming next year. All of us. No breaks. No excuses." Jake added, with presence, "Even if you make them better." I smiled, a slow, full smile that reached my eyes this time. "Next year," I said, "you won't have to bring anything." And I meant it. Christmas came again. But this time, no one said, "Let's take a break." No conditions. No edits. Just family. The driveway filled with cars. Laughter spilled out before the door even opened. Meredith was first in, arms full of gifts she clearly didn't need to buy, but did anyway. Jake rushed past her, straight to the train on the mantel. He checked it like it was tradition now. It was. "My name is Walter Graves. And this is the first year I didn't feel like a guest in my own bloodline." I stood back as they moved through the house. My house. The one that once echoed with emptiness, now full again. Meredith approached me near the kitchen. "Dad, I added something to the hallway wall," she said. I followed her. There, between the framed photo of us and her old handprint, was a new picture. It was the quilt, spread across my couch. And in the photo, her, Jake, and me sitting together beneath it. Below it, a brass plaque read, "This house remembers. And so do we." I didn't say anything. I just placed my hand on her shoulder. Later that evening, we sat around the fireplace. Jake passed out mugs of cider. Meredith unwrapped a box. Inside was the exact same mug I'd broken years ago. "World's okayest dad." But this one had a new message scratched underneath in gold ink. "But the world's only one I'll ever need." I didn't cry, but I let the silence wrap around us like the quilt. Sometimes forgiveness isn't loud. Sometimes redemption looks like people showing up, not because they were begged to, but because they finally remembered who held them together. That night, when they left, I stood by the door. Meredith hugged me first. Jake was last. "Grandpa," he whispered, "thanks for waiting for us." I looked at him and said, "Thank you for coming back." He nodded, blinking fast. And when the car lights disappeared down the road, I turned back inside. The fire still warm. The gift still unwrapped, not because it wasn't received, but because it had already been felt. Not every revenge is about getting even. Sometimes it's about finally being seen.